I'm Joanna Rose, and this is A Small Crowd of Strangers. This is the beginning of the end of the story. This part of the story is about Tofino, the tiny end-of-the-road town that was the Tofino I lived in 40 years ago. This is not a memoir. This is my story. And so Patty Ann and Bullfrog arrived at the end. Ruby's Roadhouse at the end of the road. That's what it said on the hanging wooden sign. And right under that it said, no dogs. And right past that, the Pacific Ocean took up all the rest of everything that wasn't sky. She wasn't ready for the end of the road. Days and days and miles to get here, but she wasn't ready. Bullfrog's nose bobbed in the air. It felt like a long story, driving across Canada from Minnesota. Starting at International Falls, it kept trying to gather in her head, all flying around in there. Words, sentences, feelings, facts, memories, lies. Around in there like a big leaf pile on a windy day. She counted miles, llamas, women truckers, yellow cars, vehicles bearing dogs, and license plates from Florida. She counted 17 different things in 4 days and 16 hours. She was going to stop now. Stop counting, stop driving, stop looking for signs that the universe thought she was doing the right thing, or not. The buildings of the town were here and there on the hillside that sloped down to the beach. She started to count them, got to 7, and stopped because she thought she'd counted one twice. They weren't in straight rows, and she was going to stop counting things anyway. Grass-lined dirt tracks wound around on the hillside, and some of the buildings were houses with curtains, and smoke came out of one rusty metal chimney pipe. A lot of the buildings seemed to be sheds, 3 for sure. One of the buildings was actually a large gray rock. She closed her eyes and could still see the grass-lined tracks, the sheds, the large gray rock, the chimney pipe, the dark smoke. There was an empty ache in her stomach, a calm spot right below her ribs where there was a heart that beat, not calmly, and tried to claim some duty other than beating. But it was a muscle. It had no nature of its own. There were seagulls and the low rhythm of breakers, the rhythm missing every few beats, and then a crack like far-off thunder. Bullfrog's tags jingled as he sniffed around on the porch, and the air was wet and kelpy. Patty Ann opened her eyes. It was not a dream. It was like everything else was a dream. St. Cloud, Minnesota in the rearview mirror was a dream. Driving 4 days and 16 hours was a dream. The intersections and horns and red lights and green lights of Vancouver, the ferry to Nanaimo that cost a fortune, the black water, the road up the Inside Passage, 18 bald eagles in 23 miles, all of it a dream. The door opened behind her, and a musical British voice said, "Well, what's this then?" It was a woman with a white scarf twisted around her head and earrings of pink shells and jeans that were folded high above her bare-boned ankles. She stood tall, holding a broom in one hand and a white piece of cloth in the other, the cloth very white, and her skin very black, almost blue. "Can I help you, young lady?" "Oh," Patty Ann said, standing up too fast, a little dizzy, and she leaned against the bench. "Maybe just a cup of coffee for now." Bullfrog sniffed at the woman's shoes, big, polished penny loafers with no pennies. "Is this your dog?" she said, and Patty Ann loved her voice, but it was not happy. And the woman pushed her broom at Bullfrog, saying, "No dogs at Ruby's Roadhouse. Says so there on the sign." "Just on the porch? Can he stay just on the porch while I have some coffee?" "Well, that's all," she said. Inside was a wide room, floors of rough wood worn smooth with blue braided rugs. There was a desk with a rack of postcards. Empty shelves lined all the walls below the windows and either side of the open stone fireplace at one end of the long room where a fire burned. It was a small, quiet fire. Patty Ann was in this room all by herself with the Pacific Ocean right outside, and it was time out of time, how everything stopped and started as human beings came and went. She didn't seem to really be there when she was alone in a place. It seemed like no one was anywhere. A wide archway near the desk opened to the tiny coffee shop, and the smell of coffee, and 5 small tables in a tight cluster. In a pastry case in the small counter, quiches lined up, and seeded bagels, and pink frosted donuts. The windows all looked out at the gray ocean and the gray sky. "Sit anywhere you like." The waitress, a girl in a blue apron over overalls. She said, "I'll be right with you. You want coffee?" "Yes, please." 5 tables, each set with 2 careful placemats and coffee cups and a spoon and napkin. On the placemats was a map of Vancouver Island with the compass rose in the bottom. The only direction marked on the compass rose was west, like it was penned on by a scribe, serif, bold, and only west. It said to her, "You are here." It said, "You are somewhere." The waitress brought the coffee with cream and a glass of water, and Patty Ann said thanks and took out her pack of Marlboros and set it on the table. The waitress said, "Sorry, really sorry, but it's all non-smoking in here." "That's okay," Patty Ann told her. "I don't smoke." The coffee at Ruby's Roadhouse was rich, and the cream was real cream, not milk, maybe half and half. It turned the coffee golden. Coffee with milk was thin and gray. Coffee with cream tasted like food, and she drank it and let it count for lunch. The waitress came back with the pot. "Thanks," Patty Ann said. "Can I ask you a question?" There was pink frosting on the girl's overalls. "Do you know anything about the silver tide?" "Nope," she said. "Heard of it, I guess." Patty Ann said thanks, and the waitress left. She was courting danger. 2 cups of coffee, maybe 3, maybe 3.5, but 4 cups would keep her awake, and she didn't even have anywhere to stay awake in. Bullfrog hopped up when she opened the door out, and the door bonked him in the head, a small thunk that hurt her heart to hear. But he wagged, and they headed down the road, past the sign that said, "End of the road," to the crumbling end of the pavement. The firm sand squeaked in the still cold air, and there was a fine misting rain. The beach was empty of people, time out of time. Seagulls screeched. A huge crow made deep, gargly noises. Flocks of small surfbirds chasing the waves in and out on invisible bird legs were too far away to hear, or maybe not making any noise at all. Bullfrog trotted ahead, his tags a close, familiar sound. The sky to the west was black clouds, and the cold wind blew in, smelling of far out in the ocean. Not that she had ever been far out in the ocean. What do I know? She knew that this ocean smelled different from the green Atlantic at Sandy Hook. There was a big sky smell about this ocean. It was not so close and salty. This reached to mystic Russia and ancient China. It was the great weather maker of the earth. It brought the night. The blue glass vial shifted in her pocket. Behind Ruby's Roadhouse, another road with a low square building and 3 more houses, maybe more than that, led back toward the highway. The windows of the low square building were empty except for 2 or 3, 4, with hanging curtains, one of the windows open. There were places like this everywhere, all over New Jersey, all along the turnpike, even in St. Cloud, Minnesota, and all across Canada, sad little places where not just anyone can say, only if you're sorry enough, only if you are truly full of despair. And "Forgive me, Father, I have committed the greatest sin. I have a smart mouth that gets people in trouble. And for your penance, you can drink gray highway coffee that tastes like a paper cup, and lie sleepless on a mattress that smells like someone else's cigarettes, and count things that don't matter and wait for signs that do." It was raining actual drops by the time they got back to Ruby's Roadhouse, and Bullfrog headed for the welcome mat. The tall woman watched out the window. "Bad idea." Patty Ann nudged him with her foot, and he got up and went under one of the benches. He was smart that way. She went in. The woman stood there, arms crossed, looking out at Bullfrog, except she couldn't see him now. He was under the bench. She said, "Get yourself caught in the rain." She shook her head, and the pink shells swung against her long neck as though they should ring like bells. "An El Nino year," she said. "All rain, warm." Patty Ann took a deep breath down to where her chest ached. "I'm looking for a place to stay." "One that allows dogs," the woman said. "Well, there's the Pink Dolphin Motel out on the highway." "I need to stay here at the beach. I'm waiting for a silver tide." The woman straightened up and looked at her. At least Patty Ann thought she was looking at her. Patty Ann looked out at the town. She was at the woman's mercy. She was at the end of the road.